Hi, everyone, and welcome into my last live slash Real Talk with Coach Sherry podcast. And as you can see, today is day 54 of going live every day for the next 90 days, leading up to my Sweet 16 here on YouTube. And I'm excited to be here. You may see the fire and the flames and the 50 hip hop t shirt and all kinds of things going on with what's on the screen. But the title of this session is The Good Old Days, Freedom of 70s, 80s Childhoods. And this is Fireside Friday. And Fireside Friday is really just kind of like a cozy, laid back vibe. And, tonight, we're just going to do some casual talk. And so that's what the flames are for, because this is Fireside Friday. And what you see with the 50 hip hop and the bamboo earrings, at least two pair, that's my actual t-shirt and bamboo earrings that I wore to the 50th anniversary of hip hop concert with LL Cool J, Rakim. Who else was there? Uh, the Roots and David Banner. It was a great concert. Oh my goodness. I danced until I couldn't dance anymore. I was rapping along. I was just having a great time. So I was like, you know what? I'm talking about the 70s and 80s and childhood. And, to me, when I look back, when they say, when did you fall in love with hip hop? For me, it was in 1978, 1979, around that time when Rapper's Delight came on. And so I said, I'm putting my t-shirt up there, my bamboo earrings, at least two pair. And see, just so that we can chit chat about it on this Fireside Friday. I see Slasher Chick is in the building. How are you? Yes, we're going to reminisce. And, I thought, what better day, winding down this week and just to kind of relax and relate and just imagining ourselves sitting outside around a fire pit or a bonfire or sitting in the family room, by the fireplace, just being able to chill and just casually talk about our memories of way back when. And one of the reasons why I even thought about this is because today I was driving near one of the freeways that we have here in Charlotte, where if you ever come to Charlotte, they're definitely trying to create more freeways, highways. It feels like you are on the speedway for sure. I promise you, the minute you enter or touch onto one of the highways, it's like zoom, zoom right away. You have to floor it to keep up. But I was driving towards one today and I was driving past one of my friend's neighborhoods, and she lives across the street from like a shopping center where there's a really nice grocery store. There's some really nice restaurants and like nail salons and things. It's a very nice area. And I saw that there was a path leading down into her neighborhood, and there are sidewalks over there. And I was like, huh, I wonder if she ever let her kids walk to the store for her, go to the grocery store real quick and get some eggs or some milk. And then I thought to myself, she probably never has have done that and probably won't ever do that. And it's almost an absurd thing to even think about being done here. When I thought about it again, I said, I've never seen a child in the grocery store without an adult. I've never seen a child at a grocery store purchasing anything, and then taking the bag and walking home, let alone taking the bag and just walking out to the car. Like, not even to that extent, where the adult may be waiting in the car and the child is taking, the bag of groceries or whatever out to the car because maybe the adult, for whatever reason, didn't want to or couldn't go into the store. And Slasher Chick, you let me know, here lately in the 2000s, since we've been in the 2000s, even in the 1990s, did you ever see a child going into the store and make it a purchase without an adult, like a grocery store or anything like that, and then seeing them with that same bag or a bag and just walking, walking home without adult supervision. I know I haven't. And so it made me think of the 70s and 80s and how, I just remember I would be outside playing and my mother might say, Sherry, go to the store for me real quick and get some milk. And we had a store that was in walking distance. It was probably about at least maybe half a mile away, maybe a mile away from our home. And I would either roller skate or ride my bicycle or walk to that store. Go to the store. If I rode my bicycle, I would just ride my bike and just lay it down. Or if I had a kickstand, use the kickstand to set it right out front. I wouldn't lock it up or anything. If I was on my roller skates, I would roller skate right on into the grocery store, down the aisle, get the milk, roller skate, just like Penny from Facts of Life, and go and buy the milk, and then I would go home and give it to my mother and go back outside like nothing ever happened. And sometimes a friend may come with me, but many times a friend didn't. I would be by myself, and it's just and I'm talking about. I was in elementary school, middle school, high school for sure, but definitely in those younger years. And so Slasher Chick is saying, if I saw that now, I would be aghast. But in the 80s, I went to the store alone to buy cigarettes for my great grandmother on a tab. See what I'm saying? Not cigarettes. Then I would go alone to pay her tab for her. Yeah. And the people at the store knew who you were. Nobody looked at you like, what are you doing, little girl? Nothing like that. Or let me see your ID to buy these cigarettes. They knew they was for your great grandmother. And that's a blessing, first of all, to have had a great grandmother. I didn't know any of my grandmothers. They passed. My father's mother lived, I think, like shortly after I was born, she passed, but she did live to see me. And my mother's mother passed the year before I was born. So that's a blessing that you had your great grandmother for sure. Um, but at any rate, they didn't think twice about you buying cigarettes. Nowadays, please, they're gonna call juvie on you if you try to go and buy some cigarettes. That's just not going to happen. Yeah, and it would be something, it would be a sight to see. But why did that stop? Is my question. Because even though, things were we can't say things were safer back then, and that's the point of this. It's like the good old days. It's a question mark, freedom of the 70s, 80s childhoods. And growing up in the 70s and 80s was a vastly different experience compared to today. Kids had much more freedom and independence, but also we faced greater risks and dangers. And, just looking at how we were growing up and the things that we did, that now they have all of these safety precautions. And Slasher Chick is saying, yes, that was one benefit of my mom and grandma having kids younger than they should have. My great grandma was in my life, okay, until I was 14. I get it. I get it. Yeah. So you had three generations at least. That's awesome. And I've had great aunts, but that would have been like a grandmother type. But yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Mm. And I know a few people that have had their great grandmothers, and that is the benefits of having kids at a younger age for sure. Um, but yeah, so I was thinking about that, and I was like, you know, I think I don't know. I kind of think if we lived closer to a store, the way that I saw the setup with my friends, I kind of think I would have had my kids walk into the store. I would have definitely walked with them the first few times, but especially if my son was with them, I think I would have let them go to the store because that teaches you so much. Yes, it has its challenges and there's a lot of things going on, but listen, growing up like that, just even going to the corner store or to the neighborhood store or whatever, it helped you keep your head on a swivel. No one was just going to walk up on you. You knew the lay of the land. You knew how to be very observant and also efficient. If your mother told you to go to the store and come right back, you was going to the store and coming right back. Now, I know for me, I did do some detours because where I went to the store, it was this place called Foster Village. and it's in Bergenfield. If any of you are familiar with Teaneck, Bergenfield is like right next door, and then across the street was the rink, which was big time back in the day, the roller skating rink. But Fluster Village had a pizzeria. It had a big like five and dime store, which today would probably be like a dollar store. It had, but it was kind of like a Woolworth. Two guys. I'm trying to think. What a Roses maybe. It kind of was like a Roses, So it was more than a dollar store because they had like smock type dresses, like real corny clothes, but it had like school supplies in there, knick-knack, paddywhack toys, um, little cheap household appliances type things. Every now and again, they make it something that was like, oh, they have that. I remember they had Radio Shack was a store in there, and then there was this other store that was the Cat's Meow because it was like a fast fashion store. We call it fast fashion now, but they would sell trendy clothes like Lee Twills. Remember the Lees that would come in a different colors? So they weren't jeans, but they came in like burgundy, blue, black. And then the guys would get the permanent creases sewn into them at the cleaners, and then they would also sell Le Tigre shirts. And back in the day, the guys would wear the Le Tigres and lift the collar up, button it all the way to the top, lift the collar up, and then put a big chunky rope necklace on with it, with their gazelles and their Kango hats like LL Cool J back in the day. And it wasn't like LL Cool J, that's just how they dressed back then. So and they would sell, things like that, fat laces for your Adidas and your Pumas, because that's the thing, you would have the Le Tigre and the Lee Twills and the Pumas, the suede Pumas or the Adidas, and then you would change the laces to match the shirt. So everything was coordinated. Very coordinated. And that was just the thing. Late they would sell the leather ties because some of the guys would wear leather ties. Their whole crew would wear it. They would pick a particular day. They didn't sell the leather blazers, but that's something they would wear back in the day, leather blazers. And this is back in the 80s. So let me see. Slasher Chick is saying it wasn't any safer. We hear more about things, I think, because of social media, so things definitely are not able to go under radar. Yeah, remember Woolworth? I know, if you came back without change, oh my goodness, you would have to have the receipt. The change had to be in the receipt, and it would be like, I know for me, we bunched up in my hand, and that's what I would put on the counter, like, here you go. Yes, Radio Shack. And there was this boom box. I remember one of my first cousins had this silver little boom box. It was so cute, very dainty, very feminine. And I was like, oh, I love, her boom box. And the only place we could find one that was even remotely similar was at Radio Shack. But do you remember getting that boom box with the tape cassette deck in it and the radio and basically that's what it would be. It would just be like the radio. You can record from the radio, and you would record songs, and you would have those songs because Friday nights, like DJ Red Alert in New York, and let me see who else was a DJ back in the day in New York. But on Friday and Saturday nights, they would play music that would just get you right, and prepare for the parties, or you just dancing around. So you want to record their mixes because they would have Friday night mixes and stuff, and it was just really, really good. Right. Yes. And so I had a boom box. It was a cute one though. It was real like feminine and petite. It was slender, it was silver, and it was just really cute for a girl, because the guys had the big black ones they would put on their shoulder. This one, you just kind of carry it. It was really, really cute. Yes. Oh yeah, cause see, mostly guys have boom boxes, and you see even in this picture, that's what the boom boxes used to look like. But if you went to Radio Shack, girl, you would have seen the cute ones that they have for girls for sure. So when we think about the 70s and the 80s, some of the key aspects of the childhood during those decades were the lack of supervision. Back in the day, we were allowed to roam freely without constant adult oversight. We explored neighborhoods and got into certain things that we probably shouldn't have got into. I mean, all I know is I don't know what to say. I don't even think she would say it. You just knew. All right, it's daylight. The sun is out. I'm outside. And you would go outside and you would just be outside. And I don't even remember drinking water. Like, who did we get thirsty? Did we get hungry? And I guess if we got hungry, go inside, make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or bologna sandwich, or whatever was available. Maybe if you had some leftover fried chicken, go get a leg and eat that and just keep it moving, and maybe sit out on the front steps and eat it. Because I don't remember, if it's daylight, especially in the summertime, I don't remember eating inside during the daytime at all. I would, take my food, sit on the front steps with a napkin, and go on about my way. But I remember my bike. I looked at my bike as my car. Like, I would take that thing and it would take me places. I would be in different towns, going bike riding. I would just tell my mother, I'm going bike riding. She'd be like, what y'all doing? Oh, we're going bike riding today. And she wouldn't say where you're going, what you're doing, nothing. We would just go bike riding and just have a ball bike riding in my Ross bike. I remember I had a Ross bike with a foot brake. So, it didn't have any gears, and going up them hills. But you young and in shape, going up those hills was nothing. But now I could not even imagine. And then when I was in maybe fifth or sixth grade, I remember my brothers brought me the most beautiful dark red 10 speed. It was so beautiful. And I don't even know what else I got for Christmas that Christmas, but that gift was everything to me. I was like, I got a red car. What? Because that's really how I looked at my bike. Because it took me everywhere I wanted to go. It really did. Hmm. Let's see. Slasher Chick is saying, I got hungry, but if you go in, you in, because you can't be going exactly. You can't go in and out that house. You stop slamming that door. You either in or you out. So sometimes you kind of have to slip in to get, go to the bathroom or something real quick without being, because also if they see you in, that means you don't have nothing to do. So they're going to give you some type of chore inside to do, or, something you don't want to do for sure. And it's crazy because back in the day, mothers didn't just sit around in the house. If they were in the house, they were doing something in the house. Like, what you doing? They weren't just looking at TV, or my mother might be on the phone, but if on the phone, she's in the kitchen, maybe cooking or doing something, talking to one of her sisters or sister-in-laws. And that's just how it was. It was something else. That's why you on the porch. Exactly. You can't be in that house. And you left your bike on the porch one time, and someone, what? I know you were. Yeah, yeah, you got in trouble. Exactly, as it should be. But you probably like, I can't believe, because that's how it was. Like, yeah, you could leave stuff. Like I said, I would leave my bike, but you weren't leaving it like, yep, it's gonna be here for sure when I come out. You knew it was a chance it could get stolen. You just took that chance though, because I know I didn't have a lock. I never had a lock for my bike, but that's just a chance that we took, and that's just kind of how we were living. And if my bike got stolen, I just had to be prepared to walk from wherever it was stolen from, and that's just it. Whereas kids today, it's like the parents are driving them and their bike to the next destination, getting out, taking the bike out. They can't ride any further than the parents can see. I can't see you where you at, and I know that. I know that. That's why I remember when my kids were younger, I used to walk them to the park. I would walk. Like, I walk if I can anywhere, because that's just how it was for me. And I want them to get used to that. And that's how I love it that, like, especially when my daughter was living in New York doing her internships for these past 2 summers, she walked a lot, took the subway, the train, walked, and that got her into the habit. So even in college, she lived off campus, and she would walk. She'll call me up sometimes. Yeah, I'm walking from the grocery store. She could have easily, driven there, gotten an Uber or something, but she would walk because it's like it's right up the block. It might be, a mile up, but why not? And I'm so glad that they got into that habit. My son, he walks a lot. He used to walk even more before. He used to love taking the train into work, just like I love taking the train into work. Because I don't know, it just gives me that urban vibe, and I just love it. But yeah, a lot of young people just aren't used to that. They need to always get dropped off and picked up, and I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, like, what are they losing from not having those experiences. I feel like they definitely are losing something. The next thing is dangerous toys and activities. We had lawn darts. We had the dart boards with the real, needle or whatever, the nail or whatever in the dart. We didn't have those flat nose darts with the Velcro or anything like that. Playgrounds with hazardous equipment. I remember being on the swings and remember standing up, like you would be on sitting on the swing, boom boom, then you would stand up and you would build up momentum, like don't swinging back and forth as high as you could, then jumping off. I remember jumping off one time, and because they used the park for many things back in the day, drinking and smoking or whatever. And I remember they must have been drinking there the night before because it was broken glass. And I remember jumping off and, falling and hitting my hands, and it hit glass. And that was terrible. But I didn't get in trouble for it. It's just like, shoot, like I cut myself. Wasn't looking for the peroxide, the alcohol, just trying to, stop the bleeding so I can keep playing. And I was, just with my friends. My parents were home, or, they were probably home or whatever. But nowadays, let a kid get a grass blade cut. It is a wrap. Everybody playtime is over. And it's just different. But do you remember standing up on the swings? That is the most dangerous thing. I think if I saw a kid today doing that, I would, oh my goodness. Could you imagine what a parent would do if they saw their child standing on the swing and pumping, going as high as they could, and then jumping off? That would be crazy. Oh my goodness. Um, Let me see. And Slasher Chick is New Yorkers walk. Yes, moving my car is just a hassle. Exactly. If it's under 2 miles, it's easier to just walk there. And you really think about that. You be like, you know what? I'm just gonna walk over there. Yeah. And I remember when I worked in New York, I would take the train, especially in the evenings going home, which was probably why I was in such great shape too back then. I would take the train up to like 14th Street. Sometimes I would go up as high as like 30th Street, or I think it's at 30. I forget what station that was for the A train. And I would walk up to 40th Street, because especially in the summer when the weather was better, because you would see so many people and things, and next thing you know, you're at your destination. Yeah, kids today are much softer. Firecracker wars. They, all the things that they have around firecrackers now. I don't know if they had those rules and regulations back in the day, because they would put off firecrackers right in the middle of the street, like with all the houses right there, trees. They didn't give a daggone. And, we would all just be out there enjoying the firecrackers. And now you have to be in open field. You have to have this water nearby, and you have to alert the officials in the town so that just in case. And, it's all this, it's all this more structured kind of thing. Um, and they used to ride their bikes with their skates on. Yes. Bike to the top of the hill and then use their skates. Yes. And we knew where all the top hills were in our neighborhood, and those are the types of things we did too. It was like we loved to roller skate and to bike ride, and sometimes, just like your mom, we used to do both at the same time. And if you had roller skates and didn't have a bike, well, come on, just hold on to the back of the bike, and you come with us. It's no big deal. And then I remember they had the banana seat bike, and 3 people could fit on that bike. That was crazy, on that one seat. And when I look at those old bikes now, I'm just marveled at how did we get 3 people on that seat. It looked huge back then, but um They weren't. They weren't that long. I know, it is a wonder that we survived that, that we found our way home. I know down the street from my house was Inglewood, New Jersey, and Inglewood was a very popular town too, and they had a lot of like woods, and I used to love to explore, and I would go into the woods, and deep there was one woods in particular, and deep in the woods were I would always find these creeks, and I used to just, I mean, even from back then I always loved water, and I would just sit by that creek for hours. It felt like hours. No one knew I was there. I don't even know, I might have been on someone's property, I don't know, but I would just sit by the creek. I would ride my bike, and then I would park it like into a certain point and then walk the rest of the way. Do you know how dangerous that is in real life? That is so dangerous. So crazy. And then also, and I'm sure, Slasher Chick, this is something you experienced, secondhand smoke, because smoking was prevalent back then. And, uncles, aunts, mothers, fathers, whomever, great grandmothers smoking cigarettes on a regular basis, windows up, everybody in the car, using the ashtray in the car. Ashtrays all in the house, in the restaurants, people would, smoke cigarettes in the airplanes. There was no, like, smoking areas. Every area was a smoking area. It was just crazy back then how how prevalent, smoking was, and people did it all the time. I mean, you would see people with cigarettes just hanging out their mouth. I remember one time my aunt, one of my mother's sisters and her brother, they smoked. My mother didn't smoke though. My grandfather smoked. I remember my father used to smoke a cigar, and he used to just keep it in his mouth. That's like a little butt of a cigar just hanging in his mouth. It was crazy. But unfortunately, his best friend, and my father is real good at this. You don't have to tell him twice. He learns from other people's mistakes, because his best friend actually died of lung cancer, and it was very unexpected. He went for like to go to the dentist, and the dentist was like, "Oh, I can't do anything. You need to go to the emergency room," and that's how it was diagnosed. And this was probably around. It was in the early '80s, maybe like 1980, 81, and they were relatively young. I think his friend was. My father was in his late 30s, early 40s. His friend was about 42, 43. And back then in the like 70's, 80's, if you had cancer and they opened you up, they always said when they operate on you with cancer and the air hits you, it spreads like wildfire. And they opened his friend up, and it was like, I don't even know if he lasted a year, but my father stopped smoking cigars cold turkey, period, no more. And it was just interesting. But back then, that's how it was. No matter where you went, you would just always see a smoker, smell smoke. It was so common. I don't even think I smelled smoke. Now I'm highly sensitive to the smell of cigarette smoke. But my mother's sisters, they smoked cigarettes, and I remember one of her sisters had taken her family and myself and two other cousins to a Yankees game. And we took the bus and the train and walked, to Yankee Stadium. And I remember, I mean, it was just like so wild, because my cousin, I think might have been in high school. I might have been in like eighth or ninth grade, 10th maybe. My cousin might have been in 11th. No, she definitely, I don't even think she was in 12th grade, but she smoked cigarettes. This is not my aunt's niece. I mean, not my aunt's daughter, but her niece. So she was my cousin. And so she pulled out a cigarette. We were walking to the Yankee Stadium, and she pulled out a cigarette. And my aunt was like, no, never walk and smoke cigarettes. If you're going to smoke outside, you need to sit down. We don't walk and smoke. And I was thinking, like, wait, she's getting in trouble because she's walking and smoking, not because she's not even 17 and smoking. Like, what? But, it was different back then, for sure. Yeah, thinking about sitting alone at a creek. Yes. Uh-huh. Remember picking a smoking or non-smoking section. Yeah. And because that's what happened. So at one point it was like, okay, it didn't matter where you sat, it was you could smoke or not. And then they were like, oh, you know what? Let's just make a smoking section. as if the smoke didn't travel to the non-smoking section. But even on planes and stuff, they had smoking and non-smoking sections. Hey, Jill's comfort zone. How are you doing? And listen, Jill, I really appreciated your live tonight. The 5 things that you are confident about at this very moment. That is good table talk for like friends going out, maybe on a Friday or Saturday night for like a dinner and drinks and just talking about that. That's a good conversation starter for sure. hmm Yeah, and Jill and Slasher Chick, if y'all don't have each other, y'all are two good people. Y'all might need to check each other out for sure. So another thing, so that smoking thing, and then smoking got serious with the class action lawsuits. So that's a big deal now. I know for like government, especially local government, I'm not sure about federal government, you can't smoke on any of the property. So they make it really inconvenient for you. And I'm not even sure, how do people still smoke if they have to drive off the premises of where they work? I would think by the time you walk to your car, if you're talking about, I don't know how long a break would be, maybe what, 15, 30 minutes, I don't know. But wouldn't it take about that long just to walk to the car and drive off the premises to smoke? Then get your cigarette out, light it up, smoke it. Because I would think you want to enjoy it. And then to, maybe not finish it and then get back in your car or stay in your car and drive back and get out and walk back. Like, you want to spend your time doing that? That's crazy to me. So another thing is, oh my goodness, the no seat belts. And the seatbelt and child restraint use was rare in vehicles. Safety precautions like bike helmets, they didn't exist. Bike helmets, knee pads for roller skating, elbow pads, wrist pads, all that. I didn't even know that was a thing. The only thing I used knee pads for was when I played basketball. I used knee pads because I stayed on the floor getting the ball. But just to know, like, wait, what? So it was hard for me to start getting helmets from myself when I, as a grown up riding a bike, and even for my kids, because I'm like, shoot, just be careful, hold your head up. I don't know. That's the kind of parent I am. But um, kids today be suited and booted when they go out to play. And I'm just, they walk around all armored up. How you having fun like that? You can't even really go from one thing to the next, because when you get off of whatever you needed all that equipment for, you got to take it off. Somebody has to carry it, put it in the car, because you was driven wherever you're at. Somebody drove you there, and they're still there watching you. So you have to go over to them, have them help you take it off, and then they have to either hold it or take it to the car, but you got to wait. You can't just run off. It's such an inconvenience. And I mean, aren't we all built from the same stuff? And we didn't have as much secure equipment, like I was saying, with the parks where we used to grow up. Everything was metal. Like, just think about the park and that, what's it called? That thing you climb and you are like crossing your hands, you're off the ground, the jungle gym stuff. If you fell, you falling on to concrete. Here now, you falling onto that recycled tire stuff, or it's some kind of soft landing that you're gonna have. And we didn't have any of the things that they have. Remember getting your pants leg caught in a chain guard from the bike? You have to roll up your pants leg. I messed up so many pants with oil from the chain, from getting it caught in the bike, and then you falling off, but you don't have a helmet on, and it's okay. Was nobody thinking about a helmet? Not at all. But those were some good times. I mean, yeah, you would come maybe banged up a little bit, at the end of each day, scratched up a little bit, but that's just, that makes us tougher and made us stronger for sure. I know for our kids, we never like child-proofed our home. We didn't put the outlets in the thing, the child outlets or the child things for the cabinets. We didn't put the gates up. We had 2 sets of, stairways. We never put gates up, didn't put rails up on their beds. It's like, you got to learn, what's it called? Depth perception. Don't go down the stairs like that. Be careful, and learning how to be careful in life is important. That's a skill. Not everybody knows to be careful. And I think that's what our life growing up, not having all those safety equipments, it taught us to be as careful as we could be. We if we got hurt, we didn't plan on getting hurt. We was just having fun, but we wasn't purposefully trying to get hurt. Heck, I remember running through sticker bushes playing hide and go seek or tag, just trying to get away. And I knew the consequence, but I'm trying to get away. And you do it quick enough, you're not gonna get a lot of scratches from that sticker bush. I don't even think, do they still sell or do people still have on their landscape sticker bushes? Remember, some people would have their whole driveway and walkway lined with sticker bushes or really tall bushes. And that was just so wild to me. You could barely see people when they were walking through it because it was so high, over the path. But yeah, it was a lot of things going on. Let me see. What are y'all talking about? Yeah, Jill, that topic, I loved it. It is a very good topic, slasher chick. And again, that topic is 5 things that you are confident about at this very moment, because that should change, quite often. And I really like that. And Slasher is saying, I wasn't going to get a helmet for my scooter, but I'm a woman. Uh-huh. I don't heal the same. Listen, I went to a roller skating party it probably was like 10 or 15 years ago. Probably like 15 years ago. It was a birthday party for one of my kids' friends. And I was shoot, roller skating, what? That's my thing. And so as I'm getting my shoes on, my roller skates on, I see one of the fathers was out there and he did a crossover. Just a simple, he was going around the curve and he just did a simple, let me put this foot over on the other side, boom. Fell and broke his leg in 2 places. I said, see, now this is why I can't roller skate. Because when we fall, we break things, and it's not, the healing doesn't always heal right. So I'm like, I don't have time for that. All that bending down too fast, falling, tripping, not catching your balance. No, that's going to leave a real mark. But back in the day, what? You do that kind of stuff with no problems. Now, I'm sure probably like his hip went out a little bit, just a little bit, and that made him just lose his balance. And that's what it takes. That's all it takes. In our head, oh, we doing it all day, just like back in the day. But when our body is doing something so different, and it's just not a cute thing. It's just not cute. Right. Plenty of battle scars. Yes. Yes, it was metal. The parks, everything metal. The chain links on the swings, and then if you wanted to shorten it, you would just like knock the link up. Even the daggone slide, you couldn't go on the slide in the summer unless you had a cup of water to pour down before you went down, because you're gonna burn your legs, and it gonna stick. Because remember that metal slide was no joke. It would get real hot. Yes, they cry from just that's what I'm telling you, Jill. I was like a blade of grass will do like a paper cut, and it's over. Playtime is over. And we falling on glass and chipping teeth and just keeping it moving. I don't know. I don't know how we did it, for sure. All right, let's look and see what else. Also the limited technology, and we didn't have the internet, no smartphones, no modern game systems. We spent more time again outdoors, and we had to entertain ourselves. Now I do remember when Atari came out, and that was the cat's meow. Oh my goodness, that ping pong on Atari, I spent hours playing that. And my mother and father was smart because they only let that game be in their room. We couldn't have it in the family room, no other place but in their room. So that means we could only really play it for a limited amount of time, because when they went to bed or whatever, it was a wrap. But now they have all these different game consoles and all kinds of internet. And heck, when we got two-way, I remember, I think it was my sweet 16 birthday, and I was on the phone with a friend, and I always asked my parents, could we get two-way? Because without two-way, you couldn't stay on the phone for a long time, especially if somebody was expecting a call. And usually, my mother would be like, you can't, you got to get off because I'm expecting a call. But with two-way, you can stay on the phone until that call came through, and then you could be like, all right, I gotta go. but we didn't have two-way until I was 16, and that was in 1986. And so, or yeah, it was 1986 going into, no, it was 1985, 86. And so I just, yeah, it was 85 when I turned 16, and then I turned 7 because I was born in 69. So my mother was like, no, I was on the phone and I heard this clicking, and I was like, uh-uh, don't say it isn't so. Don't tell me we have two-way. What? That was a big deal back in the day. Two-way? What? That was so cool. And then I remember when we got a cordless phone, that was like I didn't get a separate line. I know some people did get those princess phones and separate lines in their bedrooms. I didn't have a separate line. So if I'm on the phone, everybody's on the phone because I'm either on the phone in my parents' room, in the kitchen, or in the family room, and everybody's everywhere. So there was no privacy. But with the cordless phone, you able to take it into your room until the battery ran out, and this felt like it was your own thing. And then remember back in the day when the 70s and 80s. When you would go to a party and you always had to have your dime so you can make your calls so you can get picked up. But I remember when I sometimes I wouldn't have the dime and I would do a emergency breakthrough. Or if I no, I think I might have had the dime, but because we didn't have two-way, the phone would be busy because my mother's up trying to stay up talking to her sisters on the phone, so she could be up, to get the call. And so when the operator would come through and I'll say I need to make an emergency breakthrough, and they would say, "What's your name?" And I would say, "I'm ready to go." And then they would say it like, "I'm ready to go is on the other line. Would you accept the call?" And my mother would just be like, "No," because that she would know that's me, and that meant that she needed to come get me. But kids today don't know anything about that. Yes, the emergency breakthrough. That was a thing. That was our two-way. Because again, we didn't have two-way. So at first. So I had to do it that way. Yes. Right. With the craziest names. It was names like, "What's your name?" "I'm at the plaza." "Okay." They're at the plaza. And then they know that's you got to pick them up at the plaza. Yes. Or pick me up. For sure. Oh my goodness, those were some good times. Those were, and you know what? And doing that kind of stuff, it was so regular. Like no one thought it was crazy. No one looked at you like what, It was just like, yeah, that's what we do. And then the risky freedom. So unsupervised kids they can get seriously injured without adults intervening immediately. Wait, what is that comedian? Oh my goodness, it was hilarious. Hold on. Wait, I wish I could remember the comedian. Oh my goodness. And he was talking about how him and his brothers would be outside and they would make these ramps and they would do like, stunts on their bikes and everything. And so one day their mother was going to the store and they were like they went to the house and I guess the brother was still outside, but he was hurt real bad. And they was like, "Yeah, so you going to the store? Okay, yeah, could you get us some pudding? You can get us some pudding, and then you might want to take our brother, the baby, and after you go to the store, you think you might can take him maybe to the hospital?" Like what? But that's how it was. It's like, it had to be the absolute, bad worst thing. And let me tell you, okay, so my mother would never buy me Chinese shoes. Remember the Chinese shoes? They were black. They were nothing shoes. They were made out of fabric, literally. And they sold them at the corner store. They sold them at like bodegas. They was nothing. Like they no shoe store of a good nature sold them. They had these brown rubber like nothing heels. They were no heels at all, just flat. No arch support, nothing. But they were cute. They were so cute. And they just had this like one strap that went over your foot. And they like baby doll shoes or something, but they were China doll shoes. Y'all remember China doll shoes? And then they came in satin, but the black ones was the business. Like everybody had a black pair. It's so crazy. Remember those and then jelly shoes. Now I don't know why my mother let me get jelly shoes, but she would not endorse the Chinese shoes. Um, those are in right now, but I'm sure. Please tell me, Slasher Chick, that those shoes are better quality. There's just no way that anybody can have those on the market and be okay with how like cheaply made they were. But at any rate, my mother would not let me get a pair. So one day after church on a Sunday, I went to one of my friends' house, right after church. I didn't even go home to change or anything. My mother just let me go home with them, straight from church. And I went to their house a lot. This is a really good friend of mine. And now when I look back on it, especially when I was younger, I can't remember. I know I was probably either in elementary or middle school, 70s, 80s, the topic of today. And so I went to their house a lot, and I think it was because, with my parents' business, I think sometimes when they were busy, my friend's mother would be, and because my friend was the only child, and so my friend's mother would be like, "Oh, like I'll take Sherry," because me and her daughter, we basically grew up together. We started going to school together in preschool, and we played sports together, and she was just a good person, and her and father were good people, very good people. And so at any rate, so I don't know why, but I went to their house right after church. I didn't have a change of clothes. So when I got to their house, my friend let me put on some shorts and a shirt. And then she had what? She had the Chinese shoes. And so I was like, can I wear those? And she said, yeah, like there was no thing. And so I put them on, right? And, and so her house, they had a fence, a chain link, they don't even make fences like this anymore. I mean, if they do, it's to secure like a junkyard or a car lot or something. These fences, they don't have them in residential areas. I haven't seen them. They may still have some old ones, but I don't think they're making any new fences like these for the house. So at any rate, it's one of those silver fences. It has like little squares in them, and at the bottom, it's like they call them the Romeo fence, but it's on the bottom. So it's not flush to the ground. It has those spikes at the bottom. So her parents had their cars in the driveway, and they had a very long driveway. And I just remember we were playing something, tag, or you playing some kind of game as a little kid and everything. And I'm playing da da da, and I'm running, and I'm on the side by the fence. And remember, the cars are parked there, so the fence is it's a smaller space right there. And somehow my foot got caught under the fence, and it ripped my foot. And so I was like, because you don't want to stop the game. You don't want to be that one that the game is over. Like, it's not like today where, lights out, everybody got to go home. Little Jimmy has a cut on his finger. So I'm looking down at my foot, and I'm like, ooh, dang, like we're gonna have to stop playing because I think this might be serious. So I was just like, time out. Because you remember back in the day, you would say time out. So I was like, time out. I got a little cut on my foot. And it really wasn't bleeding that bad because it was so deep. And I didn't realize that's why I wasn't bleeding that bad. And so I was like, time out. I got a little cut on my foot. Meanwhile, it wasn't a little cut. The bottom of the fence literally ripped a whole, that one almost ripped half my foot off. And so I go and I'm like, like trying to be real ginger on it, not putting too much pressure on it, don't want to mess up the Chinese shoes that she let me borrow. And we go to the front stoop, and I'm like, oh, and they were like, oh shoot, like it's starting to bleed. And so I remember she called her mother. She was like, Mom, come out here for a second. Sherry cut herself. So her mother came out there. I see Girl Dad cooking up deliciousness is in the building. Hello, how are you? Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. Oh, I'm sure you cook up some deliciousness. Just with a name like that, you have to. But her mother came out, and she looked at my foot and she opened it. Like it was a cut that you could open. And when she opened it, and you could see the white, I didn't realize that the white was basically the bone of my foot, you know? And just once she opened it, it just blood was just everywhere. And so she was like, I'm gonna have to take you to the hospital. And I'm thinking, hospital? And so she told her daughter, go in the house and call her mother and let her know we're going to the hospital. And so we where we were at my friend's house, we were actually like about 3 miles closer to the hospital than my mother. We get to the hospital, my mother's already there. And my mother was like, "What happened?" Da da da. And I have the other Chinese shoe on, so my mother looks at the shoe and just shook her head, like, "See." And that's another reason why I know, like, back then I learned a long time ago, to listen to my mother. When she tells me she didn't want me to have something, I knew she knew best, and that was one of the other examples of that. But I ended up having to get like 8 stitches in my foot, and I don't know why. I don't believe they numbed my foot. I don't know if they didn't have numbing back then, but I felt every stitch that the doctor put in. So I'm not sure. And yeah, it was just really, really interesting that happened. But that was something that would happen in the 70s and 80s, growing up back then. And that's just kind of how we was living our life, and it was all good fun, and it just brings back those memories of those remember wins. I always tell my family, like, our remember when memories are hilarious, and that's what you need. And then school policies, some schools had designated smoking areas for students, which is like unthinkable today. In high school there were some students that smoked in the 80s. And you know what was really, really something special? My elementary school had a circle driveway, and it was like nestled in a neighborhood kind of thing, right? Because I went to elementary school in the mid to late 70's up to the early 80's, roller skating was the business. Do you know my elementary school allowed us to bring our roller skates to roller skate during recess or lunch, whichever one. Like if we had lunch recess, so they would put cones on at the beginning on both ends of the half circle. So you just kind of had to, you couldn't go all the way around in the circle. You had to just do it like in the full moon or the half moon way. And when I tell you, oh my goodness, just imagine being like in the fourth grade, fifth grade, and you love roller skating, and your school is telling you you can bring your roller skates and roller skate during recess. That's where the buses used to come, to pick up the students, or the cars would come to pick up people, but they would close it off so we can roller skate. No one had a helmet on. Do you know the kind of liability that the school was putting themselves in? Like, that is so crazy. No padding, nothing. We're riding on the pavement, the regular pavement, like we do back at home, but this is school. That's wild to me when I think back on it. It was the business. It was great. I guess all the parents must have endorsed it and said, yeah, because we probably. And you know what? I'm wondering if parents had to sign something. They probably didn't back then. Maybe not. Mm-hmm. Paddling. Oh, see, yeah, some schools. What do they call that? What type of discipline is that when they could paddle you? I want to say when I was probably in pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade, because I went to like a Christian school. I have a feeling they were able to do something like that back then. But things have changed so much, and I'm just trying to figure out, when did it change and why did it change? I mean, even with the way that young men are dressing, these are the these are the men that people I grew up with, in the 70's and 80's. These are their sons. And I know in the 70's and 80's, the way that the guys dressed back then, they were meticulous in their dress. They were, make sure everything matched, everything was ironed, creased. the they changed their laces. They took pride in keeping their sneakers clean no matter how cheap or expensive they were. They took care of their things. They would wear blazers. They would be very trendy with their jewelry and kind of on the gaudy side when we look back on it. But they did all that. They took pride in how they looked. They wore belts. They pulled their pants up. And now to see their sons, and I'm talking about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and I know that those were their sons. And to see their sons not dressing in that same format was unbelievable to me. Like, why would you let your son do that? You didn't do that. So that was a interesting change of events. But I just wanted to do this Fireside Friday chat with y'all and just kind of reminisce on 70's and 80's and the good old days, question mark, and the freedoms that we had. And unfortunately, the freedoms that the young people today don't have so much. It's so much fear. And I, I know, like, for us, raising our children, we got caught up in that a little bit, but at the same time, we also gave our children freedom too, because I would always look at it like whatever they do is not going to be half as much of what we did, living up top, because, down here is so different than it is when I grew up in New Jersey, my husband in New York, and it's just so different. But so we were a little more lenient than most parents. And I even find that with my kids when they all went to school, to college, and their roommates, were from all different places. And they were just saying how, finger on the pulse the other parents were, where we were more like, okay, call me when you're done, or I'll talk to you next week. Or, it didn't have to be like everyday constant contact. And I know that with the cell phones and such, parents are more in constant contact with their kids. I remember when cell phones really became popular, and not just popular, but popular for kids to have. And it was around the time when my son was like in the fourth or fifth grade. And so this was like in 2000 and maybe 2006, around that time. And he had a friend that came over to the house, and he and the friend were playing. They were, having a good time playing. It is what it is. And I knew his parents. We knew their parents very well. They have our numbers, we have their numbers. So if there was any challenge, we could communicate. And at some point, the mother came to the house and she was like, "Oh my goodness," talking to her son. She was like, "Oh my goodness, I've been calling your phone and you never answered. Why didn't you answer me? That's why you have the phone." And I said, "He has a phone?" They were like in the fourth or fifth grade. And I know if you have fourth or fifth graders now, you're probably like, Yeah, that's about right." But back then, that was not the norm. And so she was like, "Yeah, we gave him this phone so that, when we needed to reach him, for him to be responsible and communicate with us." And I said, "Well, they were playing and you knew you had my number. So if you needed him, you should have called me, because, I'm the adult and, da da da." She's like, "Yeah, I know, but I just wanted him to try to learn this, that, he has to be responsible." But I'm like, "He's 9 years old. What are you talking about? Be responsible. He's going to have his whole life to have to be responsible." I mean, there's certain things you want to teach them responsibility for sure, but to be responsible over himself when he's playing, being a kid, that was weird to me. But times were changing, and shortly thereafter, you started seeing more and more kids with phones. But we never got our kids phones until they were in high school. We would have like just like a random phone, like a family phone that just didn't do much, but it was a phone that if for whatever reason our kids were maybe at some kind of school trip or something that we weren't able to go to, we would give them that phone so that if they needed to reach us, they could. But other than that, it wasn't until they were about 15 years old that they actually got a phone. And one of the reasons is my son's godmother, she used to work for Nokia back in the back in the early 1900s, like late 1900s, but it was about 1990s, the early 1990s. And she was always like really the way that she would handle her phone for her to have worked for such a big phone company. It was like really it was like the mid to late 1990s, I want to say. The mid to late 1990s into the early 2000s is when she worked for Nokia. And you remember Nokia used to be like everything, they made a lot of phones. They were very, very popular worldwide with cell phone devices and things. And so, being that she worked for the company, you would have thought that she would always have her phone on her and boom boom boom, the latest and greatest and all that. And she would have the latest and greatest, but she would never ever talk on the phone to her ear. She would never ever put the phone to her ear. She would always just use like a earbud thing that came with the phone. um she would never ever sleep with the phone in her room. And she advised us like, don't get them phones too soon because their brains are still developing. And so yeah, the 1900s. It was. And my kids asked me one time when they were younger, they asked me, it was like a felt like I was being interviewed or something, but they were like, "Mom, how did it feel growing up in the 1900s?" And I was like, "What?" But then when I thought about it, I was like, it was the 1900s, and so she was like, don't get them phones too soon. And she said, we were at a meeting, like an executive meeting, and when we ever are at meetings, we all just put our phones in the middle of the table, just kind of like no one's holding their phone, no one's phone is in their pockets or anything. We just put the phones on the table. And one guy, this was like, gosh, I wish I could remember the exact year. Let me see. If I got married in 95, it was probably around 99, 2000. And the guy said, we are in a 30-year experiment because it'll take 30 years for the effects of these devices to impact us physically, health wise. And I know when she was trying to have a baby, her baby's father, she would tell him, don't ever wear your phone on your hip, in your pocket. When you drive, don't put it on your lap because of the radiation. And that's why she doesn't sleep with a phone in her bedroom. And she said it something about the radiation, it extends, and when you're sleeping and are at rest, your body receives those radiations more easily than when you're up and about. It's just a lot to it, and so that's why we held off for as long as we could, which was until high school, for our kids to get cell phones. But the things that they have nowadays with technology is definitely making things more efficient, but it's also taken away from being outside playing, having your head on a swivel, not being able to see danger from googling it or chat gpt in it or checking out YouTube for it. It's really being out in those streets. I remember in the 70s, the early 70s, when Son of Sam came out in New York, and we had that blackout. Oh my goodness. If we had a blackout like that, we had that summer. And Jill, I don't know if you were probably in New York when that happened. I don't know if you remember it. I think you're a little bit younger than me, but there was this blackout and then Son of Sam, and they said I forget what the whole story was with him, but he had a Volkswagen Bug and was like not kidnapping, but basically kidnapping not kids, but what do they call it when they take like grown women and stuff? Basically, let's just call it kidnapping women, and in New York, and it was this whole big thing. So everyone was trying to stay close, like partnering up, buddying up, and but we had a blackout for like a week, no power at all. And so that meant no fans or anything like that. And so we would be out even to like 10 o'clock at night because it was so hot inside. And I want to say it was August when we had that blackout. It was like a burnout for New York and New Jersey, northern New Jersey. That was a interesting time. And I could only imagine, with everyone being so connected to their devices, if something like that ever happened with the grid, and it would just be something else. But a lot of things can happen now, and that's why they always talk about sustainability and being prepared, with things that can charge your devices without being plugged in and just being prepared. And back then, the preparation was to have bread, and we really ate bread back then, and things like that. But it's just, interesting how times have changed. And maybe somebody is doing or has done, and I just don't know about it, research on the freedom that we had in the 70s and 80s, and how that has impacted us, and the differences between who we are and who are the young people coming up that did not have those same freedoms. And I know there are some areas in the country where young people still have those freedoms. Like in Manhattan, you'll see young people riding the subway alone because they have to go to school. They have a little bit more flexibility because of where they live. But overall, I just think times have changed. And I don't know, time will tell if that change is, good or bad. But either way, we just have to do the best we can. But I hope that you all enjoyed this, and, just the reminiscing and nostalgia of just going through those memories, and, share some of those memories either on your channel or with your family and friends over this weekend, this long Memorial Day weekend, and it's a lot to be thankful for. And even for our service people, men and women that have served this country, doing something that I didn't have the nerve to do. So I thank them every time I see any of them. So definitely use this weekend to reflect and be thankful. And that's why, Jill, I really appreciated your live and the question that you posed. And I think we need to have more conversations like that so we don't forget. And just hearing other people and their journeys and what they are, thankful for and confident about, it can help us kind of reevaluate ourselves and realize, yeah, you know what, I have something similar like that too. Let me be more have more gratitude around that. But you all, I am on day 54 and I'm going strong and I'm having a good time with this. And I appreciate you all for being in the building. And Girl Dad Cooking Up Deliciousness, it was great to see you. I believe this is the first time I have seen you. Slasher Chick, as usual, thank you for the support and Jill's Comfort Zone. I truly appreciate y'all for being in the building. And for those of you that weren't able to get to the chat to say hello, I appreciate you for tuning in. And if you are watching this on replay, thank you. And leave a comment and let me know, how was it for you growing up in the 70s and 80s? If you did, because I have a lot of people, believe it or not, that, were probably born in the 2000s, according to my analytics. So, just let me know, what are some of your thoughts of the freedoms or the lack thereof that you have? So, everyone, until we speak again, I want you to stay safe. It has been my pleasure to share this information with you. I am Coach Sherry.